it's a delight to present Edward Lozzi, who's going to tell you about the do's and don'ts of authors and how they should work with PR firms so that it's a win-win situation for everybody. And here is a real winner, Edward Lozzi.
No, those two stay.
Please be seated. Thanks, Irwin. Thanks for the excellent introduction. That was $20. I owed you for that. Okay, testing. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can hear now?
Raise it up.
All right, now. I completely forgot everything.
Oh, stop.
Great recovery. Thank you very much.
Bad perfume on the podium.
I'm here to talk about some very interesting people in the room I want to recognize, by the way. Beside our fearless leader, Irwin Zucker, we've got some showbiz people here tonight, people involved with showbiz. The ones that I know are here, and right here at the front table is the incredible Louisa Moritz. Now, Louisa is a lifetime member of our organization, and we go back a long way, Louisa and I. Louisa was co-starring in films with Sean Connery, with Chevy Chase, television shows in the 70s and 80s. When I first got here, she was The Cat's Meow. I was very impressed with her. I was working for a publicity firm that represented her, and that's how we met. And we became long friends, and she has a history. Someday she's going to write the book that I've been bugging her about for years, a cooking book, because she's from Cuba, and she knows about Cuban food. And she's going to be writing a book on herbology. On herbs, yes. So, and there's a lot to her. You know, not only was she an accountant, but she's an attorney, she's an actress, producer, all kinds of things. And I have to thank her because years ago, when we first started, when she was in the pink, she helped finance my company. She helped finance me, and I'll never forget that. Also in the room is a new actress, the wonderful, lovely Lindsay Stuckey. There she is, sitting in the back table. We'll hear a lot about her. We're going to be representing her. And she's with the great Marie Foti, who's one from our office, in that back table. Lovely woman. And also, the great, well, showbiz, Kari Moran from one of the top radio personalities. She's here. I'm glad she's going to be talking. And one of my favorite women, who's always here with us, Heather Hewitt. She has a new book coming out. Sitting next to her, the wonderful Geraldine Saunders. Love Boat, created it. She's here, gorgeous. Okay, if I forgot anybody, that's too bad. I want to talk about PR mistakes. And these mistakes are mistakes that you do with us, with people like us who are publicists. So the ones that are legit. You know, we have our gripes and we have problems, and we have also there has to be a relationship between the author and the publicity firm. Just, you know, as Dr. Sherry Weinberg said, there has to be understanding of targeting the book, that we have to know what that book is, what you try to. We have to read the book, and also other staffers. We have to know what's in that book so that we can create media hooks, so we can sell this book, so that we can convince a talent coordinator or a segment producer. We got about 30 seconds to get them on the phone, and then we have to back it up with emails. Sometimes they want a book, sometimes if a book is still in the pipeline, they want the galleys of the book. There is some basics. And for those of you in this room that have had publicists, you know that there's the good and the bad and ugly, just like with a lawyer or with an accountant. The professional services have the good, bad, and the ugly. And we've been around long enough, so we've learned our lessons. We've made mistakes, but we've gotten through it. So I've been doing this for about 30 years, involving with entertainment, public relations, legal PR, and we have the book division, which is my favorite. Because I love books, I love reading, I love holding books, feeling them, smelling them. I like reading them. I'm just getting used to electronic, but when the book is over, I like to be able to put it on the bookshelf and say, I conquered that one, I got through it. Publicists are frustrated writers because we're writing about everybody else. And we are jealous of you because we don't have the time to write our own books, because we are writing short stories and press releases on your lousy book. And we're making your book recognizable. Everything is brevity today. I'm sure Kari can, she doesn't want a 6-page press release on a book that you could read faster than the press release. So that gives you a basic idea what we're doing. The experience is very, very, very important. Basic terms in book publicity. The ammunition is a media release, is the press release. A lot of our media people, they're not really interested in reading the book. They want to see it. They can go to Amazon.com and see the cover. You can inject into the press release, you're going to be inserting a lot of links, maybe other media outlets into the press release. But be careful of that for a publicist that's going to be adding everything into the press release, because many media outlets want to be exclusive. They don't want to know that you did 6 shows already. They don't want to know that you've already been on, that you've been written up in a competing newspaper. You've got to do a little bit of research. So that's part of what is important for us. The type of books that we handle are usually New York publishing houses. We also do, I hate to use the word self-publish, independent publishing is a better word now, but self-publishing is pretty much the term that's used with the media that we're pushing. Is this book self-published, or is it, where? And they go to, there's so many good self-publishing independent publishers out there that is starting to morph. Right? It's about 60% of all books are not New York, even less. And the New York publishing houses are folding up and they're merging, and they're getting real tough. I've had a real tough time with Simon & Schuster with the Shirley Jones book that opened #7 on the New York Times bestseller list after 3 months of a lot of work. And because with Shirley Jones, it's easy to book a celebrity, very easy. Hi, it's Edward Lozzi and Associates. We're on the phone. We'd like to book Shirley Jones. Well, that's easy because I didn't really even have to do that. The phone was ringing. When you represent a celebrity that's doing a memoir or writing a book, they hear about it, and the phones ring when you put it in a Cindy Adams column in New York, or Liz Smith's column, or a Hollywood Reporter item. The phone rings off the wall. We want Shirley, we want Shirley. So it's about taking a lot of calls and spacing and dealing with everybody's request for an exclusive. I still don't get it today why the KTLA Morning Show and the Good Day LA show are at war, and they always have been. So if you book one on one show, the other one's not going to put you on. So you have to, ask your client, what do you want to do, the KTLA Morning Show or Fox? It's got to be one or the other. So, and had a disaster happen with the Shirley Jones book. And what happened with Simon & Schuster is we approached KTLA, and they were excited and they wanted Shirley Jones to do the show with the book. And they wanted an exclusive, which we knew, and we gave it to them in writing, signed by me. So the day comes up, and all of a sudden, Shirley, a limousine is picking up Shirley at her house, and I didn't know about it, and the housekeeper called me and said, what time is the limousine bringing her back? And I said, for what? What has she got? Well, she's on her way to do the Fox, the morning show in Fox, and which was the day before the KTLA show. So Simon & Schuster, behind my back, their PR department in New York booked this out here and forgot to tell me. So so KTLA said, we'll never put anyone in your authors on our show again. So I had to get tough and get the Simon & Schuster people to send a letter of apology to KTLA, and the damage was done though. And KTLA was just ready to start promoting Shirley Jones being on it. I'm glad they didn't, because it would have got into a legal mess. So these are mistakes that happen on a higher level. On a lower level, is a publicity company has to be able to break through the stigma of a self-published book, okay, and to get onto major media. I know some of you in here have gotten broken through. Some of you on your own. Some of you with professional help have been able to break through and get on a big national show or a big local show. It's not easy, as you know. You have to have, first of all, you've got to pay us enough to do that for you. And number two, you have to, have it has to be a really good book. And there are so many really good independent books that I have in my library that can't get reviewed. That's another thing. Reviews are the life of a book. And there are some that won't review. Connie Martinson from the Beverly Hills Courier told me, I'm not going to review any book unless it's a New York publishing house. Well, I worked on her really hard, and when Grace Robbins came out with the book on her husband, Harold Robbins, it was an independent book, and Betty White Books. But we broke through, and she put her on anyway. So there are people that you can break down if you have a good product. The book is really excellent. Publishers, okay? A publicist has to be able to work with publishers. Now, look at the fine print in your contract. I'm sure you all have, but a lot of times you missed it and you've been screwed. And I know some people in this room have been, where they didn't look at the fine print, or they didn't understand it, or even had their own lawyer look at it and passed it, rubber stamped it. There are problems. We had an author that received a $250,000 advance from a major publishing house, and they were so happy about it. And I was like, why did they pay so much for that? We were surprised about it. And turned out that the fine print said if you don't sell enough books for that, you got to pay the money back. And that's something that is happening now with the biggest publishing houses. So if somebody's bragging, oh, I got $250,000, those books that have to sell, there's a formula built in now, and you have to pay back the money. And if some people already spent it, then that could get really could be a problem. The types of outlets that we go after, if we have a nobody author, meaning fantastic book but nobody heard of the author before, it's very difficult. So the more difficult it is, the more time and energy we're going to work, which means who's paying for that? So it's sort of a catch-22. You got a new author, maybe not They don't have the financial assets to pay the average of $3,000 to $4,000 a month for a minimum 3-month campaign, which is what it is. Okay, and there are some that are higher, depending on how much. There's book tours. There's depending on Shirley Jones, we got Simon and Schuster to come up with some of the money for the book tour. So not only did they come up with a big advance, and Shirley has that same exact formula as well. Even though it opened number 7 on the New York Times bestseller list, there aren't as many books being sold as there were 20 years ago. So it's a, it used to be, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 books sold by a best-selling author like Stephen King or Danielle Steele. A lot less. A lot of people on the Nook and buying $3 books, $7, $5 books, because that's where the publishing and that's where it's going. So you got to have a publicity firm that knows about marketing online and on the internet. It's vital. Dealing with friends and fake experts. Now, we'll do a whole lot of work for an author. We'll sit down, we'll go over, we'll have a campaign, we'll have target markets. It's all understandable. We go to work, we've been paid, we start getting results. We get a phone call in the middle of the night from our client author who says, I was talking to my friend that, she said that she could make one phone call and get me on Oprah. How come you haven't done that yet? Well, maybe, is that on your target list? And of course it wasn't. We wouldn't even go even near Oprah on this particular book because we know it would be a waste of time. But the expert, fake, expert can block you and get in the way and screw up and actually, insult or pisses off. And so, which means that you don't become a priority anymore after that because we see, oh my God, this person, we thought that they got it, they knew what our campaign was, they knew what we had to do, and at what period of time. It's like a snowball effect. Certain things have to be done in print, and certain things have to be done with radio, electronic. Reviews are important. The printed word is still the Bible that the electronic media works off of, just like entertainment, just like promoting a movie star or a new motion picture that's coming out. Now, for an independent book or a New York-based book, there are goals. Everybody wants to have a book signing party at the Grove at Barnes & Noble. Everybody. But it's not going to happen because they're very particular. They have their rules. They're really getting out of hand. I had the party for Shirley Jones 2 weeks ago when the book came out, and it was a big turnout. It was great. We had a party right there. We're going to do a book party now for our other book, which is called My True Secret Hollywood Story, about Brenda Dixon, who was the villain, the original Jill Abbott in The Young and the Restless, who was, it's a tell-all on her experiences with the Bell family. And I know you know who the Bells are. The Bell family, they produced The Young and the Restless and Bold and Beautiful, and they're real bastards. They humiliated her and fired her and sexually harassed her, and they really did a number on her. And she kept it in all these years. And it's, even though it's her memoir about her life and her lovers and her success and failures, it really outs the Bell family. That's the media hook. That's the hook that we're getting. This book just came out today, and I brought 3 copies. If anybody wants to look at it, I have it here. It's Brenda Dixon is the author. Now, book tours. Book tours, it's a fantasy. Book tours, you got to have a lot of money. You gotta fly there, you gotta have a hotel there, you've gotta get, the bookstore's not gonna give you a dime. Somebody has to be promoting this, so you are, you're gonna be paying for it. You're the author. Even first-time authors from a major house, you're gonna do the PR. It's very rarely that the publisher is gonna come up with any promotional money. They'll send out a press release to Publishers Weekly, that's it. Or they'll set up your Amazon.com listing, if you're lucky. So we do it, that's what we help do that. But the publisher and the printer, well, they do the ISBN numbers and they do the basic Amazon. Now, another thing is that the date is very important that you put out that your book is coming out. Because once you put that date out there, it's hard to change it. And media doesn't want a book that says 2012 when it's 2013 if you're going to get on a new talk show or talk about something new. It's better to date it in the future. You know, even put 6 months on it. The more time you have with that date, because it's a small window. You got 3 to 4 months to get major media on your book or a review. That's it. Then you go into repetitive mode and, you know, trying to reintroduce the book. There's also little tips on that too. If you've got a book out for a year or 2 years, you may want to say, oh, it's the second printing, or it's the third printing. It's sort of a hype, you know, and somehow you got to fix that date in the book, you know, because it's there. So I just want to move this along so that we can adjourn after. I can't wait to hear from you. Now, always take it for granted that your publicist's actions are in your best interest. Don't second guess him or her. Okay, if you're going to pay the money and you're going to trust that person, let the person do the work. Don't be calling every 5 minutes. Did you get me on, you know, Good Morning America? We're going after everything that's suitable, that's right for the book. We're going to go after everything. We're going to do the best we can to convince that person to put us on the list. Knowing that there's about 35 or 40 books that have already been pitched to that same person the same day. So you really got to come up with something spectacular. It's a real sell. We're selling you and your book. It's a hype. Okay? It's an embellishment. It's whatever we can find in that book to blow it up. With Shirley Jones, a miraculous thing happened. She talks about the sex, Shirley Jones. Mrs. Partridge actually had sex, okay? She talks about it. And she talks about Joan Collins and Anthony Newley trying to get Jack Cassidy and Shirley Jones into a sort of a sex party. Okay, talks about it. It happened. Joan Collins went ballistic in London and had her lawyers contact Simon & Schuster with a cease and desist. I want all the books off the shelf. It never happened. Shirley Jones is a liar. Okay, well, we had to counter that. That's what we've been doing all week, and it is not a lie. And I had TMZ and the Globe and everything else, everybody else involved, and it's an ongoing thing. It's a scandal, and it's not a scandal, but the books are flying off the shelf. One more, the last thing I want to talk to you about is an alternative for a full public relations campaign. There's a lot of people can't afford $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $12,000. There is something that we use now. We have an alternative. It's called our LMS Bookwire. And what it is, it's the press release about your book. The same press release we'd have to send out on a full PR campaign, going to all of our media contacts, our bloggers, our book clubs, our reviewers, our feature editors, our crossover entertainment editors, and we send that out with the graphic of your book and any kind of links. And we charge a flat fee for that, and it's only hundreds of dollars, not thousands of dollars. And it works. It goes to close to 40,000 email addresses of our book contacts. So that's something that may interest you on that. I'm at lozzipr.com. That's LOZZIPR.com. And that information is on our site. And I'm interested to answer any of your questions after we open them over. I'm going to turn it over to our fearless leader, who's going to make fun of me again.
That's great. I tell you, we could go on all night long here, and we keep learning and learning and learning. Ed, I learned a lot from you. Thank you. You learned a lot from me. That's what No, I did. No, but I remember when Ed started and the people he worked for, I knew he was destined to be terrific. I'm so glad he mentioned Shirley Jones, because Shirley Jones' husband, Marty Ingalls, is a terrific comedian. In fact, I heard he was a smash hit at the Grove for about an hour. And I asked Marty Ingalls a question once, privately. I said, what did Shirley Jones see in you? And you know what he told me? I keep asking myself that same question every day. What did Shirley Jones? But look, they're going strong. That's fantastic.
I didn't show the book.
No,
If you want to.
okay.
This is the new Shirley Jones book?
This is the Shirley Jones book. I've seen her on several national shows, and sure, I'm going to ask Ed a question later about, publicity with celebrities, but he covered quite a bit of ground.
You want to see something ironic? This is our other author, that's Brenda Dixon, and she came out with her book, came out totally at the same time. Look at the similarity.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
And Brenda is not pleased. But it just happened. It had nothing to do.
Yeah, so thank you.
That's it.
Listen, we promised we'd get you out of here by 10 o'clock, and our next speaker will talk for about 20 minutes or so. I'm sorry, I said 10, about 20 minutes. Kari Moran has a terrific background, over 20 years as a broadcast journalist. She has worked with such outlets as Mutual, NBC, KNX, KFI, KPCC, KFWB, and the Associated Press. She has a terrific background, and her latest venture is on international radio, on the internet, and she naturally is heard internationally. Any part of the world can pick up her new book show, which is called BookRadio Show. The BookRadio Show. I enjoyed her tremendously when she was on KFWB for quite a while. She did a great job there. And she knows how to draw from an author. And I hope that you'll get a lot out of her next talk, our next speaker. She will tell you about the do's and don'ts of working with the media. She will tell you how she likes to work with authors and PR people, and what to expect from her and what she expects from you. So here for the next 20 minutes or so is Kari Moran.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate being here because I admire his energy. It's absolutely stunning. And the energy of all authors in the room, I might add, because I never had a disciplined brain. So for me to sit for months on end and research a subject and then write 300 pages about it? No. So not. I wanted news coming at me from all sources, and I had a short attention span. As a journalist, it was a perfect fit for me to be in radio news because information was flying at me from all sources at all times, and I'm the kind of person that really enjoys that. I'm going to spend about 10 minutes with you, I promise, in telling you my experiences very briefly in coming to an understanding about the flow of information and how it is that you need to know what we need in feeding the beast, because that's what you're doing. You're basically trying to feed the informational beast, which has gone 24 hours now, whether it be video, radio, which is old media at this point, or even podcasting. It's all around the clock. And that means every minute of the day that you spend in promoting your book, it's going to a good target, because there's so many targets out there now. I think we're swimming in a sea of information, and last year, just to give you an indication of how broad the audience is, over 301,000 books were published, just in the United States. That doesn't count the UK or other English-speaking countries. That's just us. E-books continued to grow in popularity. They were up 11% last year, according to Bauer, and although the first half of this year, though, there's been a tremendous drop-off. Only 4% of the books that are sold are e-books. I don't know what that necessarily means. I did buy a tablet reluctantly. I don't like to have publicists sending me PDFs. I just don't like to read it on screen. I would much prefer books like this. I brought this as an example because I think it's one of the most substantive books I've covered in the self-help genre. Every week on the Book Radio Show, which, by the way, the official title of is Kari Moran's Book Radio Show. It started in 2010 on KFWB, as Irwin mentioned. It went from 200 listeners in April at the book festival at UCLA, which was the last one given there. 200 listeners to almost 8,000 listeners in 5 months. And my whole thought about books was, I love them, but you've got to interest me in reading them. I'm not going to listen to you if you're Terry Gross or Charlie Rose and you're going on and on and on for over half an hour. I want to hear a beat. I want to know, okay, what's out there? If there's over 301,000 titles out there, I want to learn about more than just one in an hour. So I put together a show that has 3 books a week. I do nonfiction, fiction, and self-help. I also talk to Jason Bogue, who's editor of the Media Bistro's Galley Cat site. And he and I talk about the ebook industry and the latest headlines that week. I also call bookstores, independent bookstores around the country, and ask the owners or the bookseller, okay, what are your 3 top titles this week in your area? I just talked to Houston last week. I literally try to call all over the country so you get a really good focus group each week on what's selling in that marketplace. So I prepared a few remarks, but I don't really want to spend a lot of time in just talking about my background. I think Irwin pretty much covered the waterfront as far as being in radio in Los Angeles. I started in 1978. I was the first woman newscaster on the radio in Bakersfield, California, when there were only about 89,000 people living there. There are now over 400,000 living there. So being the first woman on the air in news in that town was kind of neat, but that was then, this is now. I really want to share with you, first of all, the market out there very briefly. First of all, women buy 58% of the books that were purchased last year were purchased by women. The only category of sales in which men bested women were hardcover books. Men really apparently like hardcovers more than they buy anything else. So I'm not sure what that's about necessarily.
Hardcovers cost more and have more money.
Okay, excellent idea. That's true. In some instances. I want to really not discourage you tonight, but I want you to understand that the whole system that's going on here with Ed Lozzi and his group and everybody else that's preparing information and repurposing it or trying to sell it to what I call gatekeepers, because I consider myself to be a gatekeeper in the sense that you're trying to filter information to me so that I pay attention to it and I consider it something that I might want to cover. And that may sound discriminating, and quite frankly it is, because a lot of information is coming at me all the time. And to get my attention, you've got to be very, very focused in the information that you give me. And really, you have to be substantive. This particular doctor operates out of Sacramento. And the thing that really moved me about the book, and I don't mean that emotionally, But she spent the time, or her people spent the time, and you're more than welcome to come up and look at this later, in preparing what I really, really value, and that is news pegs. I mean, I don't think that anyone doesn't think that this is a news peg when you consider that boomers are aging, and there are quite a few medical issues out there that are related directionally to hormones. And one woman is really interested in finding out, how can I stay healthy as long as Patty? How can I stay healthy and be sexy and energetic and not age like a lot of my peers are aging because they're not taking care of themselves? This is a very substantive book, and that's the kind of book in terms of the self-help genre that I look for. When it comes to novels, I really like to find newbies. I get a lot of my books out of the major publishing houses. That's another thing I want to point out. I do not cover self-published books. I don't. I have to rely on the publishing industry to be my filter, my editor. Anyone can write a book. And now, more than ever, anyone can write a book. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's credible, that the sources that are used in that particular book are real or true. So a person like myself who's going through 3 books a week in an hour's worth of time has to rely on the editorial machine that's already been created. I reasoned that early on, that that's the only thing that I could really do. That doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm trying to discourage you from approaching me. There's actually someone here in the room this evening whom I've invited to be on BookRadio, and that would be Olivia LaPointe. And the reason that I decided to do that was because what she had to write about resonated so strongly with me. I was denied a university education initially because my math scores were in the toilet. My SATs were like this. I was great in verbal, but math just couldn't get arrested. So I was denied getting into a 4-year college of my choice because I had to go to a 2-year school to get the math out of the way. And you know what I didn't do? I couldn't do it. But math phobia talks about this, and that's something that rang my chimes, and I decided this might be a really good fit for the show. So you can see how random that might be, but by the same token, it does have to resonate with the producer, the booker, or whomever else is a gatekeeper that you have to approach to try to interest them in your books. So just so you know, I want to make sure that it's not that I'm discriminating, but I am. I am. So what I want to do, I think the pros in the business really understand that we have a finite amount of time with which to take in this sea of information and keep swimming. So I think the points I want to make tonight are, with your information, if you're trying to approach me as a gatekeeper, I want you to be precise. I want you to be concise. And whenever possible, I really want you to create a news peg. Now, this is a perfect example of creating a news peg and having reverberation. This book came out about last year, and in the spring, and it was a bestseller. David Woolman is his name, The End of Money. It's a really interesting book about the premise of getting rid of filthy lucre, which really is filthy, by the way. There was a recent factoid that came out about the fact that, $100 bills are all tainted with cocaine. I wouldn't doubt that. But in any event, there is a new $100 bill that's being printed. And if you read this book, you're going to go, why would they do that? Because the whole premise of this is there's a very tenable way that we can deal in the world without having to deal with coinage or paper. And it would be great for the environment if we did that. So anyway, he's going to be on the show this coming week to talk about this book, which came out last year. And by the way, my rule is it has to be published within 12 months for me to cover it on the show. So books do have legs, just saying. The other thing I want to point out, though, is that the publicist for this book, which is DeCapo, an excellent publishing house, by the way, they sent a terrific and very lengthy, actually, Q&A. And you're more than welcome to see this after I sit down, but I just wanted to bring this over to show you that with a subject like this, It is nonfiction. There's a lot to absorb. A Q&A that's really substantive, like what they gave me, is extremely helpful. I spend about 6 hours in preparing for each book that I do on the show, and sometimes more, especially because of the novels. I spend more time reading the novels because you can't cheat that. If you do that, you're not going to be able to have a conversation that's worth listening to for 15 minutes, which is the length of time that I spend in the show with each author. So, and I write 5 questions, and I try to do the exposition in the questions so that the author doesn't have to start from book 101, explaining what the book is about. I try to do that in my introduction and in the lead-in in the questions, so the author can actually have an adult conversation about something that isn't just perfunctory. That's the genius of the show, and that's what I spend my time and talent and energy doing. So my advice really to you is, filter everything. And when you try to approach the media, make sure that you're as concise as possible in the information that you give us, but make it count. Make it be meaty. Don't give us fluff. You know where it goes? You know where the fluff goes? File 13. It does. When I worked for the Associated Press, as it was one of those jobs that just came my way, I was a reporter for the Country Music Report for the Associated Press. Who knew? There was a woman that owned that position who decided to have a baby and went away for 8 months. And so I happened into the job, and it was there that I learned how much overwhelming amount of information comes in to a major house like the Associated Press. And literally every day we'd have mail bins filled to overflowing with press kits, with CDs, with entities from all over the world trying to get the attention of the Associated Press Country Music Report. So I literally ended up in 8 months talking to everyone from Tim McGraw to George Jones to Johnny Cash. And this was back in the late 90s, and I think it was 98. It was one of the most fun jobs I had, but it was the first time as a journalist that I got to see the influx. Because otherwise I was a news reporter and I was going after the stories, and the assignment editor was getting all this coming in. So I didn't really know how big the flood was until I worked for the Associated Press, and that's when I learned it. And that's why I say, if you're thinking about being able to approach us and use your moment in the spotlight, as Ed will do, if he's calling up a source and he knows that producer's hot and heavy for celebrities, he's not going to waste that pitch. He's going to be laser sharp in his focus in trying to get that producer who's already on deadline, figuring out that they're going to say yes. So time is of essence, and focus is absolutely imperative. I think most avid readers enjoy up to 50 books a year. I've read that. I find that astounding that it would be that much. But, I do triple that amount. So for me, it's really important to focus and to get my information from sources that I can rely on. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them. That's pretty much it. Hi.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, as Kari Moran put it, time is of the essence. That's what we're all selling, believe it or not. And that's why it's a very difficult business being in PR. You've got to make your shots count, and you as authors have to make your shots count, and you got to make it's got to be a win-win situation with the media as well. So let's, Eddie Goldstein, can you get next to the microphone where people will come up? We're close to about 9:50, I think. Oh, it's only 9:48, but we are close. So, okay, where is the microphone in the back? I believe where that gentleman is. If any of you have questions in the next few minutes, go in the back, state your name, and tell us to whom you're directing the question, and we'll have them come up to the microphone. Okay, Eddie Goldstein, I know you want to plug your book. Get it out of the way, and what is your question?
Now, if I can get Kari's attention. Kari?
Yes.
Oh, hi.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm Edward Lee Goldstein, and one of the biggest problems we have in society is that people believe forgiveness is very challenging or hard. I've written a book, Faith, A Lion's Healing Journey Back to Innocence, Lessons on Forgiveness, which is really the definitive book on forgiveness. You can't forgive what you don't understand, and this book integrates both the emotional component of forgiveness as well as the intellectual component of forgiveness.
I'm going to ask all of your members to forgive you for pitching your book right now, but...
Absolutely. And
So shall we forgive him?
please forgive me, and I forgive myself for being a book killer. Anyways, I'd like to speak with you after the other questions have been asked.
All
Thank
right,
you.
thank you. And I forgive him.
Okay, are there any other questions? Get to the microphone, Bruce Brunstein, or are you going to the men's room?
Yeah, no, so.
Get up there and get your question in, state your name, and to whom are you directing the query? Okay, Bruce Brunstein, our membership chairman.
Yeah, hi, I'm Bruce Bronstein, I'm membership chairman, and I just want to know what, if you had any opinions on using the Kindle or publishing through the Kindle or Creative Space or Great Space, if anybody has opinions about using Amazon like that.
Well, right now, Amazon is capturing 44% of the retail book sales market. 44%. So yes, absolutely, I recommend that you do try to utilize those outlets. It's absolutely imperative. I don't happen to believe that hardcover books are going away. I really don't. I'm an aging boomer, but I really don't think that people are ever going to give up the actual hard copy of a book. I think there's going to be a pendulum swing here where you're going to see the double-digit sales of ebooks, and they already are. They're going back to single-digit status. There will be a certain percentage of people who will always prefer to grab a tablet and read a few pages on the run at the airport, but I think overall, books are personal. And you do want to hold them in your hands. You do want to put them back on your shelf when you're finished with them, and I think they're here to stay. So, but I do recommend, Bruce, that you do go that route. I really do.
I just also want to say that I'm doing the email newsletter, helping that with the book Publicists. And if anybody wants to get on that list, you know, you can get the information. And also, I'm doing websites for books. If you want to, like a website for your book, to promote your book as an author, if anybody is interested in that, let me know. I can help you with that.
By the way, excuse me, before Irwin, I did bring something that I wanted you all to see tonight. This is William Morrow Publicists, and this book came out. It's very hot. It's called Big Girl Panties. It's going to be made into a movie. But what I wanted to share with you was what happens when a publisher decides to pull out all the stops and really spend money promoting a book. And this was the most excellent production I had ever seen of a press kit. It definitely grabbed my attention. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of great artwork in here. There's a question and answer. There's even a Big Girl Panties reading group guide. I mean, they pulled out all the stops. Ed, you'd probably be interested in seeing this.
Absolutely.
So I'll leave that for anyone who'd like to see this, by all means. I've already interviewed this woman who happens to live in New Jersey. She's got a great sense of humor, and she wrote a very entertaining book. It's not high art. I can't get those books in the door that frequently. They are gems that come out of the ether, and you know them when you read them. But this is something that just hit the popular buzz, and it's selling very, very well. It's already a bestseller. But Morrow really pulled out the stops on promoting this book.
Okay, we only have time for about 3 more questions. Okay, a question to whom?
Yes, this is for the panel. I'm Lynn Walford with Wireless Mobile News. Do you pay attention at all to email pitches? Or do you prefer paper? And what about phone calls? Do you ever answer them?
Do you ever answer the phone? Yes.
I'll answer.
Okay.
I love email pitches. Send me email pitches with attachments and you'll get my attention. I will answer them. I don't just dismiss them. It's really the lifeblood of how I'm tipped off about books that are either coming up within the next few weeks or even in the next couple of months, but yes, I do.
How do we find your show?
What is your
on the
email?
The URL for my show is thebookradioshow.com.